Book of Heaven, Volume 23, Part 3. October 6, 1927. How one who works in the divine will works in the divine properties. How she forms the sun. How God wants to find the soul in all created things. I was continuing my acts in the divine Fiat, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, one who operates in my will, works in my divine properties, and she forms her acts within my interminable goods of light, of sanctity, of love, of happiness without end. Acts that are transformed into suns. These suns are produced by my own qualities that have made themselves available for the act of the soul, for her decorum, and so that these acts might be worthy of her Creator, and might remain as perennial acts in God Himself, glorifying Him and loving Him with His very divine acts. So before he sinned, Adam formed as many sons in his Creator for as many acts as he did. Now one who lives and operates in my will finds these sons made by him, and therefore your whole commitment must be to follow the first acts of creation, and to take your workplace near the last son or act that Adam did when he possessed the unity of will with his Creator. You must make up for what he did not continue doing, because he went out of my divine properties, and his acts were no longer sons. In fact, he no longer had my divine qualities in his power that lent themselves to let him form sons. At the most, as good as they might be, his acts reduced themselves to being tiny little flames, because the human will without mine does not have the virtue of being able to form sons. It lacks the raw materials. It would be as if you wanted to form an object of gold without having the metal of gold in your power. As much goodwill as you might have, it would be impossible for you. My will alone has sufficient light to let the creatures form suns, and it gives this light to one who lives in it, within its properties, not to one who lives outside of it. So you must make up for all other creatures who have not possessed the unity of my will. Your work is great and long. You have much to do within my endless boundaries. Therefore, be attentive and faithful. Then I continued my acts in his adorable volition. And as I was going around throughout the whole creation, my highest good, Jesus, added, "My daughter, just as my divine will is spread in all creation, so do I want to find you, united with it, in all created things, as those spread within each of them. You will be the heart of the earth, that I may find your life palpitating within it, attesting to me, with its continuous heartbeat, the love of all its inhabitants. You will be the mouth of the sea, letting me hear your voice in its gigantic waves, and in its continuous murmuring, praising me, adoring me, thanking me, and giving me smacking kisses, affectionate and pure, in the darting of the fish, for yourself and for those who cross the sea. You will be the arms of the sun, so that as you extend and expand within its light, everywhere I may feel your arms embracing me and clasping me tightly, to tell me it is I alone that you seek, it is I alone that you want and love. You will be the feet of the wind, to run after me, and let me hear the sweet treading of your steps that never stop running, even if you do not find me. I am not content if I do not find my little daughter in all the things created by me for love of her. I ask all creation, is the little daughter of my will there? For I want to enjoy her and be with her. And if I do not find you, I lose my enjoyment and my sweet amusement. After this I followed my beloved Jesus in the acts he did in redemption. I tried to follow him word by word, work by work, step by step. I wished nothing would escape me, so that I might press him and ask him, in the name of all his acts, tears, prayers, and pains, for the kingdom of his divine will in the midst of creatures. And my adored Jesus told me, my daughter, when I was on earth, my divine will that reigned in me by nature, and that same divine will that was present and reigned in all created things, kissed each other at each encounter, and longing for their encounter, they would make feast. And all created things would compete in order to meet with me and give me the homages that befitted me. As the earth would hear my steps, it would become green again and flower under my feet to give me homage. As I passed by, it wanted to release from its bosom all the beauties it possessed, the enchantment of the most beautiful flowerings, so much so that many times I had to command it not to make these demonstrations. And the earth, to give me honor, would obey, just as, to give me honor, it would flower. The sun always tried to meet with me, to give me the homages of its light, unleashing all the varieties of beauties and colors from its solar bosom before my eyes, to give me the honors I deserved. Everything and everyone tried to encounter me in order to make their feast for me. The wind, the water, and even the little bird, to give me the honors of its trilling, warbling, and singing. All created things recognized me and competed among themselves to see which one could honor me and make feast for me the most. One who possesses my divine will has the eyesight to be able to recognize what belongs to my will itself. Man alone did not recognize me, because he did not possess the eyesight and the fine sense of smell of my will. I had to tell him in order to make myself recognized. But with all my telling, many did not even believe me, because one who does not possess my divine will is blind and deaf and without the sense of smell to be able to recognize what belongs to it. Not to possess it is the greatest unhappiness of the creature. He is the poor cretin, blind, deaf, and mute, who, not possessing the light of my divine fiat, uses the very created things by taking the excrements that they release, while leaving inside of them the true good that they contain. What sorrow to see creatures without the nobility of the life of my divine will. October 10th, 1927. How the divine will is multiplied in its acts, though it is one. How it remains conceived in one who lives in it. How the earth is not exile for one who lives in the divine will, but it is exile for one who does not do the will of God. My poor mind continues to follow the acts of Jesus, done for love of us. And going back to his conception, I offered all my acts done in his divine volition, together with all my being, for the honor of his conception. In the meantime, a light came out of me that went to place itself in the womb of the Immaculate Queen in the act in which she conceived. And my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, my divine will is multiple in its acts, but it disperses none of them. The unity it possesses and its incessant act maintain the unity in its acts as if they were one alone, while they are innumerable. And it preserves in its acts the act of doing it incessantly, always, always without ever ceasing doing it, to preserve it always new, fresh, beautiful, and ready to give it to whomever might want it. But while it gives it, it does not detach it from my will, because my will is light, and light has the virtue of giving itself, of diffusing, of expanding. One can take of it as much as one wants, but it does not separate. It is indivisible by the virtue and the nature that the light possesses. See, the sun also possesses this virtue. Suppose you had your room closed with shutters. There is no light in it. But if you open the doors, the light fills your room. Has it perhaps detached from the sun? No, no, but it has extended and expanded without detaching a single drop from its source. However, even though the light did not separate, you have possessed the good of the light as if it were your own. My divine will is more than sun. It gives itself to all, but it disperses not one comma of its acts. Now, my fiat keeps my conception always in act, and you have seen how the light of its acts done in you extended even into the womb of the celestial sovereign lady, to have your highest good, Jesus, conceived upon it. It is the unity of its acts that, centralizing them all at one point, forms its portents and my very life, and so I remain conceived in the acts of my divine volition, in those of my divine mamma, and in your acts done in it. Even more, I tell you that I was conceived continuously in all the acts of those who will possess the kingdom of my will, because one who possesses it receives all the fullness of the goods of my life. In fact, with only their acts done in it, they concur in my conception and in the carrying out of my whole life. Therefore, it is right that they receive all the goods it contains. On the other hand, one who does not possess my will takes just the crumbs of the goods I brought upon earth with so much love. And this is why one can see creatures emaciated and good, light-hearted, inconstant, all eyes and all heart for passing things. Because since the source of the light of my eternal will is missing in them, they do not nourish themselves with my life. What is the wonder, then, if they bear paleness on their faces, if they feel themselves dying to true good? And if they do anything at all, everything is strain and without light, and they grow so deformed as to arouse pity. After this I felt oppressed, and I felt all the weight of my long and hard exile. And I lamented to my adorable Jesus, because on top of the hard martyrdom of his privations, he adds my separation from my celestial fatherland. And I said to him, "How can you not have compassion for me? How can this be? You leave me alone without you, pray only to your lovable will? How can you leave me on this earth of exile for so long?" But while I was pouring out my sorrow, Jesus, my life, my all, moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, the earth is exile for one who does not do my will and does not live in it. But for one who lives in it, it cannot be called exile, but one step of distance, such that when one least expects it, once that step is made, she will find herself in the celestial fatherland, not like one who comes from the exile, who knows nothing about it, but like one who already knew that it belonged to her, and who knew the beauty, the sumptuousness, the happiness of the eternal city." My will could not tolerate keeping one who lives in it in the condition of an exiled one. In order to do this, it should change its nature, and the regime that exists between one who lives in it in heaven and one who lives in it on earth, which it cannot do, nor does it want to. Is it perhaps called exile when one goes out of his home to move just one step away from it? Certainly not. Or can it be called exile if one goes to a town within his own homeland? My daughter, exile means circumference of space without being able to go out, stripping of goods, hard labor with no way of getting out of it. My divine will does not know how to do these things, and you can see, you can touch with your own hand how your soul has no circumference of place or space, but brings herself everywhere, into the sun, into the heavens, and a few times you have even made your little escapes up there into the celestial regions. And how many times have you not immersed yourself into the very endless light of your Creator? Where are you not free to go? Into the sea, within the air, everywhere. Even more, my will itself delights in it. It pushes you. It gives you the flight to go around everywhere. It would feel itself unhappy to see one who lives in it without freedom and as though hampered. Instead of stripping, my divine fiat fills the soul up to the brim with its goods. It gives her dominion over herself. It converts passions into virtues, weaknesses into divine strength. It gives innumerable joys and happinesses. It gives by grace what it is by nature: firmness, perennial unshakability. The exile is for one who is tyrannized by passions, without dominion over himself, without being able to move around within his God. And if he thinks of some good, it is mixed with and surrounded by darkness. So the virtues of the poor exiled one are strained, inconstant. He is a slave to his own miseries, and this renders him unhappy. All the opposite for one who lives in my divine will. Nor would I have tolerated keeping you alive for so long, knowing that you were in exile. Your Jesus loves you too much. How could he have borne keeping you exiled? And if I tolerate, it is because I know that, as little daughter of my will keeps you not in the conditions of exile, but in its own properties, in its light, free and dominating, with the only purpose of forming its kingdom within yourself and of impetrating it for the human family. And you should be happy about this, knowing that all the desires, the yearnings, and the sighs of your Jesus are for the kingdom of my will upon earth. My complete glory I expect from the Fiat Voluntas Tua, on earth as it is in heaven. October 16th, 1927. How the divine will, like water, makes its inundations. Who the ones are who let themselves be inundated. What unity means. How the Queen of Heaven laid the foundations of the kingdom of the divine will. After I had gone through various days of privation of my sweet Jesus, I was feeling embittered deep into the marrow of my bones. I could take no more, and tired and exhausted, I wanted to refresh myself in order to gain strength. So I abandoned myself first in the supreme volition, and then over myself, so as to at least be able to sleep. But while I was doing this, my mind was no longer inside of me, but outside of me. I felt two arms clasping me and taking me up high, very high, under the vault of the heavens. But I could not see who it was. I feared, and a voice told me, "Do not fear, but look up high." I looked, and I saw heaven open, and my longed-for Jesus descend toward me. We both flung into each other's arms, I clasping him, and he clasping me, and in my sorrow I said to him, "Jesus, my love, how you make me struggle! You make me reach the extremes. It shows how the ardor of your love for me is no longer what you had for me before." Now, while I was saying this, Jesus took an attitude of sadness, as if he did not want to hear my laments, and at the same time, from the height we were at, I saw a pouring water descend, and many places were inundated. Seas and rivers united themselves to these waters, and inundated towns and people, burying them into their bosom. What terror! And Jesus, all afflicted, told me, "My daughter, just as you see these waters that descend from heaven in torrents, and inundating, form with their strength the sepulchres in which to bury entire cities, so does my divine will, more than water, make its inundations, not in certain times or places, but always and over the whole earth, pouring its strong and high inundations over each creature. But who lets himself be inundated by its inundations of light, of grace, of love, of sanctity, and of happiness that it possesses? No one. What ingratitude to receive its goods in torrents and not to take them. To pass over them may be just getting wet, but not to let oneself be inundated and drowned by the goods of my divine will? What sorrow! And I look at the whole earth, to see who takes the inundations of my will, and I find only the little daughter of my will, receiving these inundations, drowning in it, and letting herself be transported wherever it wants, remaining in its bosom, prey to its gigantic waves. There is no sight more beautiful, no scene more touching, than to see the littleness of the creature prey to these waves. She can be seen, now, prey to waves of light, and though buried inside of them, now drowned by love, now invested and embellished by sanctity. What a delight to see her! And this is why I descend from heaven, to enjoy these enrapturing scenes of your littleness carried by its arms in the inundations of my eternal volition. And you say that my love for you has declined? You are wrong. Know that your Jesus is faithful in love, and as he sees you under the waves of his will, he loves you more and more. Having said this, he disappeared, and I remained all abandoned in the waves of the divine Fiat. Then, coming back, my lovable Jesus added, "My daughter, my will possesses the unity, and one who lives in it lives in this unity. And do you know what unity means? It means one. A one that can embrace everything and everyone, and can give everything, because it encloses everything. My divine will possesses the unity of love, and of all loves, united together. It possesses the unity of sanctity, and encloses all sanctities. It possesses the unity of beauty, and encloses within itself everything beautiful that is possible and imaginable. In sum, it encloses the unity of light, of power, of goodness, of wisdom. True and perfect unity, while being one, must possess everything. And this everything must be all of an equal strength, all immense and infinite, eternal, without beginning and without end. Therefore, one who lives in it lives within the immense and gigantic waves it possesses, in such a way that the soul feels the empire of the one strength of light, of sanctity, of love, and so forth. So, in this one strength, everything is light for her. Everything changes into sanctity, into love, into power, and all things bring her the knowledge of the wisdom of this unity. Therefore, to live in it is the greatest miracle, and the perfect carrying out of the divine life in the creature. The word unity means everything, and the soul takes everything by living in it. After this, I continued my rounds in the acts of the divine fiat, and as I arrived at the seas of the celestial mamma, that she had formed in the unity of it, I thought to myself, my sovereign mamma did not have the interest of impetrating the kingdom of the divine will, because if she had had it, in this unity in which she lived, just as she obtained the kingdom of redemption, she would have obtained that of the divine will. And my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, my daughter, to all appearances it may seem that the whole interest of our Queen Mamma was for the kingdom of redemption, but it is not true. That was the external part, but the interior was all for the kingdom of my divine will. In fact, she who knew all the value of it, and the complete glory for her Creator, and the maximum and complete good for creatures, could not do without asking for the kingdom of the eternal fiat. On the contrary, by obtaining the redemption, she laid the foundations of the kingdom of my will. It can be said that she prepared the materials for it. It is necessary to do minor things in order to obtain greater ones, and this is why I had to give the first field to redemption, almost to build the factory of the kingdom of the divine fiat. If a kingdom is not formed, how can a king say that he has his kingdom and that he dominates? More so, since the sovereign Queen of Heaven is the only and sole one in the glory in the celestial fatherland, because as the only and sole one, she formed her whole life in my will. And a mother loves and wants for her children to possess her same glory, and she, in heaven, cannot communicate all her glory and greatness and sovereignty that she possesses, because she does not find anyone who has lived her same continuous life in the divine will. Therefore she longs for the children of its kingdom, so as to have all her glory be reflected in them, and be able to say, I have my children who equal me in my glory. Now I am happier, because my glory is the same glory as my children's. The happiness of a mother is more that of her children than her own. More so for the celestial mother, who, in my will, more than mother, conceived all the redeemed ones, and formed the very life of the children of my divine will. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 23, Part 3. Fiat.